Hi guys, before we get started, I just want to say if you're watching this video when it's first posted, for one more day you can get my third book, The Heron King's Rampant, for free on Kindle. In this gaslamp fantasy adventure, an alchemist and a shadowy band of rogues must hunt down fanatical nobles wielding a weapon of mass destruction. It also takes lots of inspiration from the world of Dishonored. Hello again, back with another Dishonored crafting video. This one will be pretty short. I'm making a Bonecharm. This is a lot simpler than the rune, but still presents some unique challenges. These artifacts are encountered throughout the games and, when equipped, grant the player small buffs and constant effect abilities. They are much more numerous than the runes, and the strategic equipping of a limited number of Bonecharms at once can be a kind of dark art. Dishonored 2 includes the ability to craft custom Bonecharms for bespoke effects, and can confer multiple abilities at once. As with the rune, this will be made from metal and bone rather than 3D printed plastic, so though it might not be as visually perfect as those in the game, it'll at least be real. I'm making a version from the first game, both because I enjoy that one more, and because it's a lot simpler in design. The charms from Dishonored 2 are insanely detailed. I saw someone actually made a 100% accurate Dishonored 2 Bonecharm from brass using water jet cutting and a metal lathe. That's crazy impressive, and I do not have anywhere near the equipment or skill to make that. For this project, I chose antelope leg bone, since it seemed the right shape and size. I bought two, but it turned out I only needed one. I also went back to my favorite metal, aluminum, which is pretty easy to cut. This sheet is 3/16 of an inch or 4.8 millimeters thick. I also used this thin tube, about an inch wide, though it turned out a bit too wide, and 3/4 inch would have been better. Next up, these aluminum discs. I actually swiped these from work, but they were going to be tossed out anyway, so it's okay. I got a couple slices of rectangular loops for the mounting brackets. These are a bit too big, but the only other ones I could find were too small, so they'll have to do. First thing is to cut 2 equilateral triangles for the central piece. I was going to use 3, but that ended up being too tedious, and I didn't need 3. Once again, my trusty little hacksaw did the job, though I did replace the blade since the rune video. Next, I had to crack the ends of the bone to get the broken effect. Turns out bone is pretty hard, go figure. Cracking with vice grips got it going, and I was finally able to snap it. But I ended up having to shorten the pieces more later, though, to keep the dimensions right. Then I sawed off the joint ends. Remember what I said in the rune video about bone dust? Yeah, it still stinks. I cut the tube to make the metal connecting pieces between the bone and the central piece, pretty easy to cut through. You can see how the rough pieces will begin to fit together and start to resemble the final product. I then used my combo grinder sander to smooth down the rough edges. I used the corner of the grindstone to add some detail to the discs. Then I cut the ends off the triangles. Then drilled holes through the 2 stacked pieces where the loops will go. Next, I drew some curved lines to mark the curvature of the central piece. To make these, I first made some transverse cuts with the saw, then hacked out these pieces very roughly. Not too pretty. I used the grinder to somewhat smooth it down. Caught a few aluminum flecks to the face during this, but not too bad. Always wear safety glasses and gloves while doing something like this. It was embarrassingly late in the process when I realized the central piece was way too chunky compared to the game design, so I had to recut the pieces. Very annoying. To put the pieces together, I used a new tube of JB Weld epoxy. This one had 2 syringes in one, so presumably it dispenses the right ratio of compound. I first assembled the metal connecting rings to the discs, and then the bone. Unlike the last time, the epoxy set properly and I didn't have pieces falling apart. Next, I placed the loops, spread epoxy between the 2 halves of the central piece, and then pressed them together. Then my signature black metallic spray paint. After that dried, I placed the bone segments onto the central piece. The epoxy set after only about an hour, so I could place them both pretty quickly. I can't tell if this third piece is made of bone or metal from the images in the game, so I used more aluminum tube with the rounded discs at the ends. I placed this last. Okay, almost done. All charms of this type have this kind of teardrop shape in the middle. I cut out a paper pattern and then scribed it using my mini Dremel tool. Finally, the bone segments have these symbols carved into them. One looks like a backwards S, and one like a backwards combination sigma and E. Use some marker to let that stand out a bit. And there we have it, my Dishonored Bonecharm. As I said, not perfect visually, but real materials. It just barely fits inside this shadow box. When I bought the one for the room, they were 2 for 1 at Michael's, so I figured I might as well. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and maybe it'll inspire you to make your own or other game prop. Thanks for watching.